Hello everybody. In this video, I'm planning to finish the API so we can now focus on the front end. So let's actually finish the last part. So what we did in the latest one, we add the authorization endpoint. And in the authorization, we have the user repository where we're able to find a user by email and create a specific user. Those allow us to send it to the users table. Every user creates an ID and that will allow us through the middleware to verify if that person is authenticated or not. We also setting the user inside the context for Hono app. That means that is a piece that we can now use in our application. That will allow us to do something that we don't have in place yet. And what is? If we go to the project, the only things that we are looking here, and actually we're looking at in index, we just authenticated everything from the API after except the authorization endpoint, but we're requesting that everybody should be authenticated. Now that we are authenticated, I want now to see who's the user and who's making the call. Because the way that the application is working right now, everybody can see everybody else projects and tasks. So it doesn't matter who you are. To show you case that, let me run the project at the moment. And I think I have my here. I'm sorry for that. Let's clear it. Let's just do npm run dev. Cool. And we can actually make the calls in the projects. We have this one that is actually pointing to localhost. If I get it, it should fail. So I need to sign in. We have here our user. Hello there, this is my local user. And I'm able to get a token. With this access token now, I should able to get my projects. Paste it, send it. I can see my hello there project, right? But what happens if I register now with other user? It should be here, sorry, body. Let's do other user. And we should be able, let me copy this, go to login, run login with the other user because now it's been registered. That user should be able to see the same project. Why? Because we are not following who is the owner of the project. So there's several ways to do this. The way that we have it is like, let's say one big organization, like where everybody can see everybody's data. And that works when usually you're working like in a team per se. And you say, well, you know what, this is everybody's project. You can see is that the goal, the way that the application is fine. But then let's say that you want to separate that by users. Let's say, you know what, every user will have his own projects, and one user cannot see somebody else's project. That's where we need to intervene, start making a separation. And I want to showcase that. And there's bigger scenario when you can create teams and every team can see a specific project. And then you can escalate this to a way that, well, this project is public in my team, this project is private in my team. And you can move on and make things more complicated and more real. I will just make it that every project is per person and that's it. So the first thing that I need to do just to make it easier, well, I know that it's valid and I have a project with ID 4. Let me just delete that project. Delete project. Um, should be like this. Should be like this without this. And the authorization should be bearer token. paste it, send it. Cool. Delete project work. That means if I get the project, I should have any project anymore. And that's fine because that's what I like it. Just delete everything. We are going to do some changes. And I'll show you how to do those changes in. So the first thing that I want to be involved now, well, how can we make aware our application that projects belong to a specific user? Well, we need to go to our schema. That's the first step that we need to be doing. And in our schema, we go back to our projects, and let me just minimize this and this. Maximize projects. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to add here a user ID. It will be an integer because we're using integer across the board. And on the database, we'll call user underscore ID, right? But this user ID, I want this to be not null. And reference. And let's do that. The reference is getting the user from our user getting the ID. And we'll say that on delete, we'll say cascade. That means if we delete a user, every project for that user will be deleted from the database. It's just the best way to handle it. Here we're just adding our table. We have a user's ID column or project table, and that will reference to one particular user. Now, so we have that. It's really important now to do from this particular table to add the index corresponding to that. So let's do the index. Let's call this index IDX project user ID, and that will be on table.user ID, the filter we just added, right? Actually, this is the wrong place. That should be after the closing part. There you go. Cool. We created now the reference. Created the reference. Now we can do different elements here. Before I continue, let me get back to my database itself. So let's go to Wrangler table right here. And we can see that our projects don't have any user ID in there. Let's just add it. Here, cool. Let me close this. Let's do a simple npm run db generate. That will allow us to have the extra SQL statement. And this what it does is alters our projects table. We'll add the user ID, the null reference to user ID, and we'll create an index, right? So now that we have that, we just need to execute it. So npm run db migrate local. So yes, done. That will allow us to go to our database, go to projects one more time, and we have the user ID there. Cool. So we have the first step here. Let's just add this and let's say added user ID to projects table. And let's sync it just to have it out there. So now that we have that and we have a schema and our database, we need to reference that in our project repository. something will change here across the board. So the first thing that will change is the list projects. We cannot list projects now, everybody. We need to always send our user ID. And sending that user ID, we can say that return database select from projects, order by, ascending. That's perfect. But before order by, we need to add the where clause. Where, and we need to say equal or projects dot user ID, comma, to the user ID that I'm passing in the function. Right? So now we're saying whenever we list the projects, we need to send who user belongs to, and we're just getting those projects specifically, and that's it. I don't want to have any other project listed. Now, something that we can do here is we can say if we do roles, we are not going to be doing roles. If the user ID is an admin, maybe the admin can read, so we send everybody's project. But if not, the case just the person projects. So just imagine how this can grow. I don't want to go that overcomplicated. I just want to show the basic steps. Let's get that particular user projects, and that's it. So now that we have this, well, that means that if we get a project by ID, I need to verify if that project belongs to that particular user, right? So we do the same. Projects, await the select from projects where equal projects ID is ID, and we can grab all this and we can do an AND statement. That's pretty neat. So we need to add it from this URL. So here we'll be having the equal, and we do comma, we can do another equal. That means that this needs to happen and this needs to happen in order to make this work the way it's supposed to be. So what are we doing here? Well, we'll be exactly the same equal as before. Projects user ID equal to the user ID that we're sending the project. And I think I have an extra one there. Yeah. So I hope it start making sense what we're doing through here. When we create a project, well, we need to send the user ID too. And I think we need to send that before. Let's send it here. There you go. So we create the timestamp. Let's do we have our values normalized. Okay. And what else we can do here? So we need to send in the values, we have the normalized the input. Let's send our user ID, created at, and updated at. That's it. Why? Because on the schema, we call this user ID. So we can, you know, that in JavaScript, when the value and the variable have the same name, you can just define it once, and JavaScript knows to separate user ID, column user ID with the values that we send through here. That's pretty much. So let's copy this and let's do the same for the update project. And let's actually put it here. Oops. Here. There you go. So here, what I want to see is change on the word statement. And this word statement you need to see something like or very similar that this word statement with project ID is equal to the ID that was sent and project user ID the same as the user ID. So we can copy this if statement here and paste it right here instead of this one. I mean, we are defining that the user can only insert on the database size whenever it belongs to that user. Now for the delete project, we need to send the user ID. And the if statement will be exactly the same. The word. We to send equal that one and equal the user ID itself. That will allow us just to change on the database level what that user has permission. Now, how we know who is that particular user? Well, as we saw before, we are sending the context, the user percent. So we just need to change this in our, we have the schema, we have the migration, we have the repository who handles the database. Now let's go back to our route on the projects. And we just need to change the project percent. So here, we know that the user is already here. So we just do const user ID equal c.get user. That's the name that we are setting up. And we get, as you remember, we're saving the user ID in the sub element. And we know that this value exists because this is a static piece. So it should be already there. And we know that because in our util authentication, we are sending the payload where we create the payload. Oh, wait, it's not here. I think it's in the route. Whenever we do login, let me look for this. Logout, login. We parse the JSON body. We get the user. And then we payload the user hash. We verify that. If that works, we send the user ID and the sub. So that's what we're getting from our token. We just pulling that one from there. Another good practice that people do that doesn't like to expose user IDs, internal user ID in your database, is that you can have a reference database for stuff with user ID. That will be an extra layer of protection. Here we just simplify things. So that will allow us to get the user ID through the sub. And now our list project will be, well, with user ID. Because list projects require database and user ID. And we'll be doing that across the board. Oops, let me copy this. That will allow us for the post, we get the user ID. And whenever we create a project, we need to actually send that user ID. If we remember, we send the user ID as the middle one. That means the user ID should be here. User ID. Cool. What else? We need to go to get ID. Which one is ID? Here one. So we are actually just sending. Oops. I forget it to copy the correct line here. So get ID. We need to change get the user. And whenever get project by ID, We need to send the user as the last one. Next one will be patch the ID. The same. We paste with the user. And after we do everything, update project, need to save user ID as the third element. Remember in JavaScript, the order of the parameters count. Next one that we have to do, let's do the delete. And for the delete will be pretty much the same with the user ID at the end. Now let's get with the tasks. Let's go all the way to get ID tasks. Yes, this one. We need to send that because we get project by ID, and project by ID requires our user ID. And it's pretty cool because if that project ID exists but is for different user, this will be an empty, and the user will get a 404 if it's trying to guess or get the ID something that doesn't belong to that person. That's the part that I like it. So that should be like this. Let the post will be the same. We get the user ID, we extract it, let's say it like that. And whenever we call get project by ID, we need to send the user ID. Cool. I think that should be it in here. I think we have everything listed. We get the get projects. Cool. Post projects. Yes. Get ID task. Yes. Post ID task. Yes. It's working that too. Get ID. Yes. Perfect. And patch project ID and delete the project thread. Yeah. So that will pretty much help us in that area. And we can add this. Actually, let's add both. You know what? Let me wait. I will not stage it yet. Let's do route task. So here we're just going to be something different. Task route, we don't have a direct ID endpoint. We don't need it because we can handle that at the database level. So let's go to task repository and let's do a change and let's add a helper function called get tags by ID for a specific user. And let's put that one on the end. So this one will be send the database, the ID and the user ID, and we just select give me the task for that. Now we need to import projects here from a schema. So it knocks what we have and oops, and we need to import and from the result RM. That way we have a new helper function that will join our projects with the project ID. And then we can actually do the task ID and project user ID, the user ID per se. So this will be a helper function that will allow us to have that. So that helper function, we need to get now in a route in a route per se. And where is the route here? We need to import it, of course. So whenever we are getting from the tags repository, let me see where is it. Here we should be with a delete task. We have the update task, but then instead of getting get task by ID, we'll be using get task ID for user. So that means that this one will change. This one, the only things that we need to do is get task by ID. Instead, get task by ID will be the task by ID for user. The database, the ID, and the user ID. And remember to get the user ID if for more context. C.get, we save it as user, and we get that up. That will allow us to, well, instead of getting it by the ID, will be for that particular user. And that's it, and send the request. But now, the other changes that we need to do in the other areas will be the patch and the delete. We cannot patch and delete it directly. We need to verify if the user belongs to here. Right, so let's get the user. That's the first one. We still get the ID, the payload details, detail length is not within the error, database, get the database, and then we need to get the task before we update the task. So here, before we actually update the task, we need to do a check. Well, I mean the task for the user. If there is no task, no, we just delete it. Like we just send it 404, not found. That's it. And it would be really, really similar for the deletion. So to prevent to a user to delete a guest ID from somebody else, we just make the call, give me the user, and before the delete task, we just need to do pretty much the same. And will be get me that task if that exists. If it doesn't exist, it's a 404. If exists, delete it. And if it was not able to be deleted, well, that's redundant probably here. Actually, it is. Because it doesn't exist, doesn't matter that it will delete if it exists. So I think we can delete this part. And we can just do, instead of get counts deleted, we just do a simple await delete task. Now, after we have that, we should be able to just return the task per se. So few notes here. Let's add everything and put it here. Let me just remove from the stage change with that minus. Let me change the task repository. And the project repository. Added user ID lookup for projects and task repositories. And then in the routes, we just put those two and let's say added user ID to routes. So that should allow us now to send different data. So let's try to run our app. Let's do npm run dev. Right, it's running right now. Right here. And we should be able to log in with the other user. Let's try that. Cool. Copy this. We'll get all the projects. It should be anything. Perfect. So let's create it. So let's do create project. New project. Hello there. Let's call that one. And let me say that. And this will allow me with user ID 3. Look at that. The new project is there. If I get the old projects, I get my project ID 5 with the user ID 3 listed. Cool, right? Let me repeat duplicate my login. And let's do now another login with the previous user. Oh, it was hello there. And it was the other one we will call other user, I believe. And we put the other user as password. So you will get the projects with with the other user account. The user should not have anything. Oh crap! This should not be working. Let's try one more time. Here, allow me to have this project. Send this. Okay. Oh, I think something happened. I think I have it the other way around. Let me look at my database. Let's pick the database. As simple. Just to see who is the owner. So projects belongs to user 3. User 3 is my other user. Okay, yeah. Other user is the owner. Cool. So that means if I log in with other user, I should be able to see the task, the project. Oh, oh, I didn't copy the whole access token. Okay. If I log in now with hello there, and we know hello there is a different user, this project should not appear anymore, right? So now we have the protection across the board, depending who is logging in, without even to send who is the user, or application that already have that context and understand the different elements that need to happen, right? That's pretty neat. So before we deploy, I want to do a couple of things here. One will be to, I think I have, let me just go back to my route authentication. And I think in my, where is it? Refresh one. Oh, here. No, the other one. I think I saw whether I have a typo here. So let me look for expires here. My session, I have expires underscore at, and it should be according to the schema. Let me get back to the schema. Session expires at is with common case, no snake case. So this should be this. It's a little typo that I had there. Session user ID, I had it like that. I don't remember. Um, schema. Yeah. Oh, we have a issue here too. Is user ID. And I think that should be it in the refresh part. Let's verify that it's actually working. Let me get the refresh token. And which one refresh token I took? I took it for hello there. So that means I need to send this one. refresh. Oh, I don't need to send a notification. Get this data. Let's go to a simple here, just to see that yes, the sub is correctly sent. Okay, that's what I wanted to see, that we were actually getting the correct information. So that was just a typo that I had in the previous video. Fix it, refresh, typo. Boom. And the last thing that I want to add is there's actually two things. I want to add course and rate limiting to protect our application a little bit more. So what is course? Well, cross course, or the name is cross origin. It will prevent for one application or for one website to call the API located in a different URL. So we have here our application or backend deploy. We already deploy it and it has its own URL. So anything from another different URL will be blocked for the browser because it doesn't have the same origin policy. So we need to tell our backend who can actually call those particular frontend from the frontend. So let's say that you have your bank is bank.com. So if your token get um, catched by somebody else for any reason and try to make a call from evil.com, I don't know, whatever. Evil.com could not run JavaScript that might request to bank because it's not in the allowed list. That will not prevent to do server to server or like a direct call because that bypass the course, but at least a website that is not listed will not allow us to do that. Saying that, our front-end application that will be consuming this app will not be working either. So we need to add the specific course element to our application per se. And it's really simple to Hono. You go to Hono documentation and show you how to do it. But I think it will be faster if I just show you here. The only thing that we need to do is from after this, we just import course from Hono course. And whenever we use the API, we just need to allow it the API endpoint or application actually to accept the course element. So pretty much when we initialize it, we send the trace ID. Cool. We can use now, our application will use um, something and we'll define this. Now, even that we don't have the API endpoint defined yet, we can say we need to be as soon as possible telling that everything that's called API, whatever, will be using course, right? And this is just a function that we can send an object. This object could be origin, and you will see here in the documentation that it actually pull pretty neat. You send the course options, and that course option could be a text, like this should be the way to handle it, or there's also a way to do or a function itself. And I want to do the function part. So let me just do function. We'll get origin, context, and we're going to get a particular function to pull. So const allow it. I want to have a variable inner context called allow it origin. And that will the ones that will let us know that if we can or not allow a particular URL. In this case, let's use something like this. So allow origins. Let's save it in our development variables. We'll have a particular URL that we need to be handling for our course element to make it work. And that should be in the following format. I just look in my notes, give me a second. Will be something like this. Locally will be HTTP localhost 5173, right? And this is URL that bit with view is running locally. But whenever we need, we can have multiple apps. So we can have something like HTTP, othersite.com, and things like that, right? This should be a string. We cannot make it an array. So in order to allow us and be dynamic, we need to add multiple. We can define those arrays like with a comma. And we can allow it that every call from localhost 53 and every call from other site, HTTPS, let's say for example, those should be allowed only. So we will get back here and we'll say, you know what, get this variable. And this variable is actually a really long string. I need to just verify, well, if that variable actually exists. If it exists, oops, I will split it with commas. That will in JavaScript, it will make an array. I will strip the commas and will make, well, every comma will be now a different element. And I will map every element and what I want to do is a cleanup for every that origin trim. I don't want that extra spaces here at the beginning, so just trimming. And look like I don't remember how to type, right? And after I do that, if that exists, I do that. If that doesn't exist, I send back an empty array. We need to be always careful with our data, right? And then I just return allow dot includes the origin that we're sending. If that returns, we send the origin or we send null. What does mean, or what this actually means here. We are telling it to our application, if you allow this include that particular data, the origin, we send the origin as the origin parameter. If not, we just send a null element that will not allow us to have that particular call. So this is a dynamic way to do it. The static way will be just to remove this and have something like http // localhost 6173, right? But when we deploy to production, this need to change. That's where we're getting the MB. And because we can actually have multiple ones, we just need to be a little more dynamic following the elements than what can be done or it cannot be done through the app per se. And I wanted to hear that I have an issue. Oh, here. This should be double. Yes. So we just make the array. If it doesn't exist, we make an empty array. And if it's there, we send it or we send none. So we send origin to be allowed. Now, After we have the origin, we need to allow specific methods. That's what we'll tell, well, what verbs, HTTP verbs we can use. And the one that we use in our app are get, post, patch, delete, and options. Option is a method that will verify what are the methods allowed. So we need to put it here in our allowed credit. We need to send, well, my headers that I'm allowing, content type, and authorization. And at the end, we tell them, well, credentials true, because we can send those credentials to them. So that's pretty much what we're telling here through the app. It will help us have in our dev part what origin we can actually use to make calls. That's it. And that will be used in the next video when we do the front end. For now, let's keep it as it is. Right? What else do I need to do here? I think we did the fix. We did the course. And the last one that I want to do, let me just put this one over here. Added course. I want to do rate limiting. So the rate limiting is a really cool thing about to define, you know what? You cannot do X amount of call in a specific timing. Um, that will prevent us for the DDoS attack in our application. There's a way to handle it, but we're using Cloudflare infrastructure. That's actually really, really cool. That say that we can just go to a Wrangler JSON. And let me verify if we have the rate limiting here. We don't have it. Okay. Let me just remove all these comments. And following Cloudflare information, we can do something like this. We can have a rate limit, give it a name. We know define a space ID. Should be in like any integer. And we define a simple limit, like how many calls in a specific period of time. That's pretty neat. Like this is really simple to define, just because Cloudflare allows us to do that. It will be different depending where you're deploying your app, but I think for now this is the best way to do it in our application, the faster and easiest way to implement it. So saying that, we just need to put it here. That means, now let's call it simple rate underscore limiting. This will be an array. Ooh, you say that rate limiting is not allowed. Oh, it's called rate limits now. Sorry. And in my array, let's do a simple element like let me copy the ones that we have in the page. Let's do, let's call it my rate limited. Why not? Namespace ID. Let's do 1001. And let's keep as it is. And let's do a simple rate limit. But I want to make this smaller, like 10 calls per second. Because I want to really focus on the limiting element. And that should be it. That will allow us add a rate limit to our application and to commit, right? So let me test. I didn't test this in development, so let's try to do that. We can see that allow origins is being called, so that's actually pretty neat. I will just cancel this and run it again, just to see if we're fine. You go back to our projects. Let me do some login requests. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It looks like locally is not doing it. I didn't try it that much. Let's do login. Ten, 11. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't work locally. Well, let's try to make it work in production. Oh, I just wanted to see. I didn't test it, to be sincere. Okay. So what else we need to do here? Okay. I know what I did wrong here. So I'm actually doing this a little badly wrong. So let me get back to my Wrangler. So let's change this. I don't want to this call. The limiting that I want to protect is actually my endpoint that is not in the 401, and those are the authentication. So let's make this a context a little bit better. And let's make this authorization limiter. Right? Here, what I need to do is I need to add a new middleware that will allow us to use it. So let's add a new one. Let's call rate limit. And that one will be really simple enough, like this. So here we use a rate limiting with the bin binding name. We call it the out limiter. And we say next. If that limiter exists, if that doesn't exist, we just go to the next one. So we do a body request JSON, header connection is IP or anonymous, just to verify wherever it's been calling. It doesn't have an email. Reject the body so downstream handlers can still read it. The body can check, and then we send that header to connection IP or anonymous, just to keep it where it is actually from. If success, limit the key. If not, success, we throw the 429. It's too many requests, right? That's pretty much what we're saying here. You can see through the process, and we just need to resend our body per se in order to make it work. Now, sorry, I need to get back and reverse this. So, right limiting, we just got the limiter with the binding name that we'll be sending. We did binding with authorization limiter. If there are not, we just go next. But we just do the header and we set as the key so we can limit that particular key. So we're giving a key to the requester. Enough success, we just send it for 29 and we just skipping the body completely because we need to handle body only one time. That will allow us go into our route authentication. We can import this one here and we can call rate limit middleware and then we can call it right here. Our authorization limiter will be rate limited with the out limiter and we just can call every middleware through here. This one will be the register one, will be the logging one, and it could be the refresh one. So are the three that I want to protect. So the user doesn't have. We protect our application for particular attacks in the login. So this is just for location. It's not globally. So if somebody sends a request from Sydney and London simultaneously, this location has his own counter. This is designed because performance. So there's something not completely well. It's depending if somebody tries to hit for several places, we have bigger issues. But so far, most of the cases that we'll be handling. The namespace ID is just a number that we pick. Two bindings with the same namespace each share counters across workers. The period can only be 10 seconds, no other values. That means um, we need to limit those per 10 calls for every 60 seconds. That means that 10 calls for every limited. And this limiter will not exist in local development. That's why we need to do the if not limiter, because this will not be there in the binding, because it doesn't work in development side. So saying that, let's consume add real limiter. We sync it, and we need to do a couple of stuff. One will be, let's close this. Let's do npm run database migrate remote, right? Mhm. Oh, I think I need to re-authenticate here. So let me do that. Oops, probably you should not see that. So let's try one more time. Migrate remote. Yes, one migration. Done. Cool. And then we can do simple npm run deploy. And that will just deploy the changes that we created. So I have that one locally in my, with this URL. So that means I can call it through here, and let's try the login endpoint instead of this one. Oh, I need to register. So let me register first. Cool. Let me log in. There we go. Let's try to do several calls and let's see how it actually works. Let's see if we get the 429. I think I'm not hitting it, or it's getting past the different calls. Or maybe because I'm sending the email endpoint. Yeah, we send something about the email. So let me verify what we did in the middleware. Let's try to make this smaller, just to see if we can make it work. If not, I'm so sorry. I will review that and let you guys know in a future video. So let me get back to one request. And let me just do a simple deploy. Cool. And let's test one more time for the login. Yeah, this should not be working. Okay, let's try something else. This happens sometimes in code development. So I found an interesting project called Hono. Is really new, not as well maintained that I like it, but it works. And Hono Relimiter. If we see here, you see it's really new. But if we see the clover part, we define our limiting in clover size, and we just call it through here and we apply it across the board. And probably it will be a best way to do it. So let's just use this across the board instead of one specific place. So let's handle it in the wrap. Let's minimize this and let's go back here. Okay. So I will remove my middleware. Move to trash. I don't need it anymore. My authentication. I need to remove this and remove this, 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 and this. Be across the board. Let's commit those. Repair back wrong limiter. And we can now do a simple install. npm install Hono limiter. Cool. Now that we install it in our index, we should be able to use it. So let's do here. Let's call this from here. And after we use this one, actually before, let's do something like getting from the content since the beginning. We don't need bindings. I'm taking this from the documentation. And we call this out limiter, right? Let's just be sure that is how we call it. Out limiter, out limiter. There you go. And that should be it in theory. Let's test this out to see it work. Add it. Honor limiter. And let's test it. I'm testing live with you guys. So let's see if this actually works. npm run dev. Our limiter is there. One request per 60 seconds. So it should be working. And here, log in to here. There you go. Too many requests. At least it's working now. Yay. So I did something wrong before. So I just look for somebody else's implementation and we just apply it. So we have that really weird that we cannot do anything until 1 minute passes before we can make another call to that. Now, probably that is too aggressive, but at least we can see that is actually working at the moment and we are sending the 429 the way that is supposed to be, right? So something that I want to see here is, or something that I didn't like is this actually been sending us text. Uh, so what we can do about it? we can send a message probably, and they will allow us to use something. So let me see. I'm seeing on the same documentation. Let's get the index. So we have the binding, well, generation. We have the message. Okay. And we can see our API errors. Let me see what is the error. Error. So we send this name, status, code, and details. And when we call it throw new API error. We have this one already, and we have this one. So in theory, if I do other, this should fail. Okay, let's do pretty. We send the error element. So we can validate this a little bit, probably. We can copy this. And that's the problem to using somebody else's responses. So let's paste this here. And we're using, yes, it's a simple array. So we can replicate that. I don't like it. It's a little hack. But let's just try to keep consistency here. So index. So too many requests. Message will be too many requests. Let's try again later. I like that message. Details will be empty. And we need to send the trace ID as c dot trace ID. And that means that this probably should be sooner. Okay, we define that as the trace ID. Oh, we need to see how to call this because this is not defined. Let's see the message. What should be it? It can be a string, a record, or a function with a context. So let's send context, and we return. Let's grab all this here. Return this. Okay, maybe it works. Let's see if it's actually doing what it's supposed to. Um, okay, so let's try one more time here. If I do one, it should work. If I do two, oh, too many requests. There you go. We have an error the way that we have the errors across the board. So we able to send them, but we didn't get the trace ID. Yeah, I really wanted to have that. This being safe, it is. So let me get how we're getting the error one. So when we send the, let me check validation. No. Let me verify the project endpoint. This is for create response. It's in the response. Yes. Get trace ID and get trace ID. Oh, it's with the get. So we can get it from the response. Oh, let's do it like this. See get trace ID because we know that it exists. So this should be like this actually. Cool. That means we have the first one should work. Yes. And the second one should fail. And we have the trace ID that we're supposed to. Cool. I was just matching the error code to be the same across the board. So added real rate limit. Cool. And before we actually commit, well, actually we already commit. Let's change this to 10. I think it's a better number. Increase rate limit request. Cool. It's almost done now. We should be able to npm run deploy. Wait a minute to push it. And now let's make the call the way it's supposed to be. So we have this one pointing to the one that should work. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This should fail. Oh, we are not hitting that many error endpoints. Yeah, before the first one and the last one is just been that one, or it's taking longer to actually deploy. Well, we're able to test it at least locally, and we know that it actually worked. So it took longer. Looks like all my videos is taking longer than it's supposed to. I troubleshooted live with you guys to show you my chain of thoughts, what I need to see here and there, what I need to define. So I just pretty much follow this example in the for the Clover and different elements that you can use here, right? But I saw through the documentation or the source code that it accepts sending the context so we can actually get the trace ID and we just replicate it pretty much. So because this one sent their own 429, it bypass or a response endpoint. That's why we send like that. The best approach would be actually just to use our own and make it work. I'm sorry that I was not able to do it, but this I think it will be faster just to use somebody else, and we just trick the error response to match the error response that we have across the board. So I hope so far you like it. And we added the ID for projects and the user IDs. So every user has their own. We had the rate limit and we had the course. We didn't send the URL for course in production, and that was on purpose. We'll be doing the next video. And I think that will be the last one that we did for the backend itself. So I hope that you like it. Any question or doubt, don't hesitate to reach me. Happy coding, everybody.